Guys, welcome to my YouTube channel. My name is Goodness John. In today's video, I'll be showing us how to make a peplum wrap top. If this is something you're interested in, then stick with me to the end of the video. Without further ado, let's get into the video. I'm going to start by drafting a basic bodice. So I'll start by imputing my shoulder measurement, which is 14 divided by 2, that's 7. I'll mark that on the pattern paper. Next, I'll mark the neckline, which is 3 by 3 inches. This is just for a basic bodice. I'll alter this eventually to the measurement I want for the wrap top. So I'll mark my 3 by 3, and then I'll go to the shoulder and mark 1 inch drop from the shoulder point. Next, I'll use my pattern master to connect my lines. So I'll draw my neck curve and then I'll draw my shoulder line. Next, I would apply my vertical measurement, so my bust length and my waist length. So because it's a peplum top, the bodice is going to be a half bodice, so it's going to stop at the waist length. So my top bust length is 10 and my waist length is 16. I'll mark both lines on the paper and then draw a horizontal line across. Next, I'm going to mark my chest line. So I'll be dividing my bust measurement by 6 and adding 1.5 to it. So I'll mark that measurement from the 1 inch drop for the shoulder, and then I'll draw a horizontal line across. Next, I'm going to work on the armhole, drafting the armhole. So I will first apply the shoulder measurement on the chest line as well. And I have 7 inches, so I'll mark that. Next, I'll draw a straight line to connect the shoulder to the chest line, and then I will split that line in 2. So I will take my tape and then divide the straight line into 2 to get the midpoint. At the midpoint, I'll go in by 1/2 inch and then mark it. Next, I'll apply my round bust measurement divided by 4 on the chest line. So my round bust is 37 divided by 4, that's 9.25. So I'll mark that on the chest line and on the bust line. Next, I'll connect the bust measurement at the chest line and the bust line with a straight line. The next thing I'm going to do is to draft the armhole curve. So I'll connect a straight line from the top to the midpoint and then use the curved area to connect from the midpoint to the bust measurement at the chest line. So I'll just draw a curve and that's my armhole curve. Next, I'm going to go on to impute my darts. So I'll do that by marking my bust span measurement divided by 2. So your bust span is nipple to nipple point. So mine is 7 divided by 2 is 3.5. So I'll mark that at the bottom and at the top and use a straight line to connect the points from the bust line to the waistline. Next, I'll measure 1/2 inch on both sides of the dart line. And then I will connect a line from the bust line to the 1/2 inch line on both sides. Next, I'm going to impute my waist measurement. My round waist is 28 divided by 4, that's 7 inches. So I'm going to account for the 1 inch for that I took. I'll transfer that 1 inch for that and add it to my measurement. So the next thing I'm going to do is connect my waist measurement to the bust measurement with a straight line. I'll be using the same pattern to draft my back pattern. I'll just do a few alterations with a different color of marker for the back. So the first thing is the neck depth. So the neck depth for the back is just 1 inch. I'll mark that and use my marker to draw the neck curve. Next, I'm going to determine how deep I want the front neckline to be. So the initial neck depth I drew for 3 inches was just the basic. So I'm going to mark 6 inches as my neck depth for the front pattern. This is also just a guideline. Remember, it's a wrap top, so there's going to be extension attached to the center front to make it wrap around the body. So I'm just going to draw my neck curve of 6 inches depth. Now I'm done with the basic structure of the bodice. I'm going to cut out the pattern and then cut the back before I go ahead to add the extension for the front. Now remember, the brown marker is for the front neckline and the green marker is for the back neckline. So I'll go ahead to cut out my pattern now. So I've cut out the pattern. So I'll take this back pattern and transfer to fabric to cut out the back piece. So this is my back piece. I've left 1/2 inch allowance at the bottom, 1.5 inch allowance at the sides, and 1/2 inch around the armhole and the shoulder, but I didn't leave any allowance at the neckline because I eventually wanted it 1/2 inch wider than the 3 inches I wanted. So I'll take the pins out and then go to add the extension for the front pattern. I've added a piece of paper to create my extension. So your extension from the center front can be as wide as you want it. So you can go from 4 inches to 1/4 of the waist measurement. So it shouldn't be less than 4 and it shouldn't be more than 1/4 of the waist measurement. So I want mine as 1/4 of the waist measurement. That means it goes all the way from side to side. So I have 7 inches as 1/4, and then I would go up by 1.5 inches. I'm going to connect from the 7 inch mark to the 1.5 inch with a straight line. And then from that 1.5 inch point, I'm going to connect it to this neckline for the front. So this is what I meant when I said the 6 inches was just going to serve as a guide for how deep you want the necklines to be. So I'm just going to try to connect from the shoulder to the 1.5 inch, but I'm going to pass through the 6 inch depth. What I mean is that curve, I'm not going to follow the curve of the neckline that I drew initially, but I'm just going to try to ensure that the lines connect from the shoulder to the 1.5 inch at the bottom. You may want to use your free hand just as I did. Just ensure that you have a smooth curve from the shoulder to the 1.5 inch at the bottom. Now that I have a smooth curve, I'm going to cut out my pattern and then transfer the pattern to fabric. So I've cut out the fabric. I have 2 pieces for the front, one for the left and one for the right. I have 1/2 inch allowance on the bottom at the armhole and at the shoulder, and I have 1.5 inch at the side, just as I have for the back. To get the circumference for the peplum, I'm going to measure the waist. So I'll measure the front. So I'll measure from one side to the other, minus the allowance and minus the darts. So because by the time I join everything together, when I'm attaching the peplum or the flay, I'm not going to have that allowance, and I would have sewn the dart. So I'm going to calculate how much I have. So for the front, I'm going to double the measurements for the front, because there will be 2 pieces for the front, one for the left and one for the right. And then for the back, I'm going to measure and then double that measurement, because I just have one side of the back. So I'm going to add that up, so 2 sides of the front and 2 sides for the back, and in total I had 42 inches. So you can either do this calculation now, or after you've coupled your front and back pieces and you're ready to attach your peplum, then you can just measure what you have around the waist and use that to draft your flay. But I'm just showing you in case you want to draft yours before sewing, then this is how you do it. You just measure it on the pattern and subtract what measurement you're going to use for that and allowance, and then that's what your circumference is. Now to get the radius for the circle, I'll be dividing the waist measurement by 6.28. So I have 6.68, which is approximately 6.7. I'll add that measurement to the length of the peplum, which is 10 inches. I have 16.67, but I rounded it up to 17. Now to cut the flay, I'll take that measurement of 17 inches and fold it over the fabric. So I'm folding 17 by 17, and then I will fold the other way 17 by 17. So it's like folding on a handkerchief. You bring the two ends together 17 by 17 and fold the other way, bringing the two ends together 17 by 17 as well. So you should have a square when you're done folding. So this is my square. Now I'll apply my radius. As I said initially, I just used that measurement to get an idea of what the radius should be, because I find that when I use that exact measurement, my circle ends up being slightly bigger than it should be. So I'll start by applying 6 inches radius all around, and I'll measure it to see what it gives me. So I'll go ahead and measure the curve, and it gives me 10 inches. So 10 by 4, that's 40. So it's still a little small, so I'll just add a little to it. So I added half an inch to it, and measuring that curve gave me 10.5. So by 4, that's 42. So I'm okay with that measurement. Now that I would apply the length I want. So my length is 9 inches, but I added 1 inch for allowance, that's 10. So I'd measure 10 all around from the curve that is my waistline. And then I will cut out my flay. So this is how to cut a full circle. So that's a 360 degrees circle. And then I'll split one end opened, because we need one end open for the wrap. Now I'll just go ahead to mark the back so I don't get confused when I start sewing. I'll put this aside and draft the sleeves. I'm going to have flay sleeves like the bottom of the top. So first I would measure what should be the circumference of the flay. So I have 10 inches on one side, so on both sides it's going to be 20 inches. But I don't want my sleeve to be the exact measurement because I want to pleat some part of it. So I'm just adding 8 inches to that. So my circumference is 28 inches. So to get the radius I need 28 divided by 6.28. I have 4.5. But I'm going to round it down to 4. I decided to round down because this has already covered my circumference and plus excess. So that 0.5 is not going to make so much of a difference, but so I don't want it too big, what I need to pleat. That's why I decided to round down instead of rounding up. Now the sleeve length I'll be working with is 9 inches. So I'll add 9 inches to what I have, 4 inches. So that's going to give me 13 inches. So I'll cut the sleeve the same way I cut the peplum. So I'm marking the 4 inches around, and I'll measure the 4 inches to see what I have. I'm okay with the measurement I have for the 4 inches. So I'll go ahead to apply the length, which is 9 inches. So that length of 9 inches is including allowance. So my allowance is 1 inch. So 8 inches for the actual length and 1 inch for allowance. Once I'm done, I'll go ahead and cut out my sleeves. So the difference between the sleeves and the peplum is you're going to have 2 pieces for the sleeve. So you can either fold it when you're folding initially as 2 pieces, or you can do it twice. So I folded mine as 2 pieces. And for the sleeves, I wouldn't be splitting the sides open. Now I'm going to cut the bias that I will be using to turn the neckline, the back and the front. So bias cut is cutting your fabric diagonally. This helps to fold So if you use a straight strip of fabric to fold around the neckline, it's not going to sit properly. So to cut this bias, I've drawn a line diagonally across a piece of fabric, and now I'm going to measure 1.5 inches across. So as much as I want, that would be enough to fold the back and the front, both fronts. I'll cut my bias. And then I also go ahead to cut strips of fabric that I will use for the rope. So this measures 5 inches by 20 each. Now finally to sewing, I'll first transfer my dart to the back piece and to the front piece. So I'll bring my pattern paper that I drafted initially and place on the fabric to find where my dart should be. So I'll mark the dart on the back piece, and then I'll measure how long it is. So it's 7 inches. I'll mark 7 inches and then make a little notch on where the dart should be, and mark the length on the other side of the back piece as well. So for the front, I'll do the same thing. Mark where the dart is, measure the length, notch it, and do the same on the other side. Now I'll just fold my fabric so I can mark what my dart is. So my dart is 1/2 inch, so I'll just draw a line from the bottom to where the dart should stop. I'll do it for all the dart points. This is just to make it easier when I go to sew. I just sew it all the way instead of trying to figure this out on the sewing machine. Now I'll take the front and back pieces to the sewing machine and sew the darts. I've sewed the dart and given it a good press. The next thing I'm going to do is apply my measurements on the back piece for the bust and the waist. The round bust measurement is 38 and the round waist measurement is 28. So I'm going to be applying half that measurement because this is just 1/2 of the bodice. So I would measure across and see how much I have and how much I have left. So whatever I have left, I'll divide that by 2 and apply it on both sides. So I need 19. I had 2.5 inches excess, so that means splitting that into, I have 1.25. So I'm applying 1.25 on both sides of the bust. I'll do the same thing for the waist measurement. If you found this video helpful, don't forget to give it a thumbs up. And if you've not already subscribed, hit that subscribe button and turn on the notification bell so you're notified whenever I post a new video. And then I would use a straight line to connect the bust to the waist. Now I'm going to create a hole where one of the ropes would pass through for it to be a wrap dress. So I'm going to go up by 1 inch from the waistline, and then I'm going to measure 1 inch for the length of the hole. So my stitching is going to start, and then I'll lock it at that point, and then I will skip all the way to where the other 1 inch starts and lock it and sew it all the way to the end. So this is going to be the hole that one of the ropes will pass through. So I'll take this to the sewing machine and join the back piece to the front piece. I'll join the shoulders together with 1/2 inch sewing allowance, both shoulders, and then I'll join the sides together. So I've joined the sides together. The next thing I want to do is to fold the neck. So I already coupled it before sewing the neck. You can either do this before coupling or you can do it after coupling, but I think applying the bias after coupling gives you a neater finish than before coupling. So I've used my pressing iron to fold this in two. Usually a bias should go 1/4 inch in, 1/4 inch in, and then that's what this is what normal bias should look like. But I find that it's easier for me to just fold it in two than doing the normal way bias should look. So I just fold it in two and sew one end, and then the other end I just sew it on top. This is just easier and faster for me. I'll sew it from the inside, so the bias end to the inside of the cloth. I'll sew it from one end to the other. So I've done that already. So what I want to do is to fold it out. So I'll just turn it outside and then sew on it all the way to the other side. So I've sewn it and given it a good press. So this is what the shoulder looks like. It has a neat finish. Next, I'll work on my flays, so the sleeves and the bottom flay. So what I'm going to do is fold the ends. If you have trouble folding the ends of flay straight on the sewing machine, what you can do is iron it first. So you iron 1/4 of an inch and then iron 1/2 of an inch. After ironing it, I'll take it to the sewing machine and sew it straight, and I'll do this for both sleeves and the bottom sleeve of the top. So I've sewn all three and then I've given them a good press. Next, I'm going to attach the bottom flay to the top and the flay to the sleeves. For the bottom of the top, I will be attaching the flay from end to end. So I place one end and then sew with 1/2 an inch sewing allowance all the way to the other end. I've sewn it and given it a good press. So the next thing I want to do is to attach the sleeves. So I'll take the flay to the armhole and I'll be sewing this, placing right side to right side of the fabric. So I will start sewing from 2 inches before the shoulder point. So from 2 inches all the way to the other side, 2 inches to the other side. So by the time I'm done, I'll have 4 inches open at the shoulder. So this is what I mean. I've gone ahead and sewn it, but that side at the top, 4 inches at the top, is left opened, and this is where I'm going to pleat the excess. So I'll start pleating. I'll just arrange it first, pleating it evenly on the 4-inch part that I left opened. So I'm just going to arrange this and then take it to the sewing machine and sew it across. And then I'll do this for both sleeves. Next, I'll go and sew the ropes. So I'll fold it in two and sew with 1/2 an inch sewing allowance. I'll fold one end closed and leave one end opened for turning. So I'll do this for both of the ropes. So I've gone ahead and given a good press. So now I'm going to attach the sleeves to the top. So I'll be attaching one sleeve to one end and the other to the other end. So I'll place it at the top and then sew it with 3/4 of an inch allowance because I'll still be folding it in. So I'm going to do this for both sides. So I've attached it. The next thing I'm going to do is to fold the end. So I'll fold it, ensuring that I fold the end of the rope as well, and then I'll sew from top to bottom. I hope this video has been helpful and easy to follow. Don't forget to give it a thumbs up, and it's been fun hanging out with you guys. Thank you all for watching, and I hope to see you in my next one. Bye.